Welcome to Between the Covers, the show for readers and writers and lovers of books. I'm Stephanie, and I'm a publisher at Red Penguin Books, where we publish books of all types and genres. So if you have a book in your head, a manuscript ready to go, or maybe even 400 sheets of loose leaf shoved into a drawer, and yes, every month at least, I get a giant envelope filled with loose leaf, so it does happen. Visit us at redpenguinbooks.com and unleash your inner author. I'm so thrilled today to be joined by three authors who have unbelievably unleashed themselves. Beth Roos is piping in today from Ohio, and the White House Code from her Forest Guardian Chronicles is something you're definitely going to hear more about. Ronnie Kessler is the author of The Mystery of the Bedouin Girl and Rachel's Gifts, the second book in a series. And Marie Wishart is the author of Ignite, an intriguing dilemma that extends past the pages of the book, and that's for sure. So first, I'd love you to meet Beth Roos, and she writes of the White House Code. When the fate of humanity hangs in the balance, clearly desperate times call for desperate measures. This is where King Arthur's wizard advisor, Merlin, and his friend Morgan enter the picture. Merlin needs all of his attributes as a Bigfoot, shapeshifter, and immortal to enlist the aid of his friend Morgan to bring the planetary protection system online as the star Betelgeuse in the Orion system faces an imminent supernova. Using clues found in the White House China patterns, Morgan must decipher the proper activation sequence by following the prompts that lead him to the pyramids at Giza, to Mexico, and the Siberian Valley of Death. It's a race against the clock that must be won to prevent the extinction of humanity. And the clock is ticking faster every second. Please welcome author Beth Roos. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Wow, that was, boy, did I do a good dramatic reading? I was trying because
you did great.
I mean, wow, that description. I mean, I want to see the trailer going on that one. That's just amazing. But what I love about this is, considering I just read, well, our viewers are hoping it's a fantasy of some sort, but maybe not, because you actually have experience in so many of these different areas.
That's right. And I did not just, I wrote it and then discovered later that some of it was true. So we call it historical fiction.
I love that. Yeah. When it's in a book category, the description sounds like fantasy fiction, but yeah, there's some truth here. And also in your own background too. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I worked at NASA for a number of years and in their anthropometric lab. So I knew a little bit about astrophysics, and this book has a lot to do with it because there's aliens and such in the book. And Morgan happens to be the president of Galactic Federation. So he is trying to save the planet Earth. As Stephanie said, the star Betelgeuse is going supernova. It's in the Orion system. If our planetary defense system is not activated, we will be obliterated. So the codes are hidden in the China, which I happen to have. I only have one. So this is an actual George Washington plate. I have it on loan from the White House. And so how we selected the code system was, since it's a star going supernova, we looked for all the presidential plates that had starbursts on them. And of course, George Washington's was the first. Then we looked, it has 13 colonies, so that would be part of the code, number 13. It has the element gold, which is number 1 on the elemental table, so that's a code. And then, each point of the starburst. So there was all sorts of ways that we could gain the codes and then input them at each location. So the main plates that have the code is Jefferson, Washington, Lincoln, Monroe and Taylor. So that's how I came up with the codes. Little did I know that there was all sorts of stuff in there, especially Jefferson and Washington, who were Masons. And I have Jefferson's plate, but I didn't get it out. His has a armor and a knight, and Knights of the Round Table, Illuminati. So we were able to put together codes from that. So that's how the codes for the adventure went for us. And it's really fast paced because they have to move really fast. And in the crux of all that, the US military is trying to take out poor Morgan's group all the time because he invented CRISPR technology, and they want that technology to make human hybrid soldiers. So, so he's battling that, plus trying to find, the right codes and the right mix. So it worked out in the end. Look, we're all still here.
Hey, we're all still here is right. You have to tell us why, when you were picking up that plate, it appears you're wearing a glove.
It is because I have a little museum glove, because the plate is so old, the porous, the china is really porous. And so fingerprints, the oil from your fingerprints would utterly destroy the plate. So, that's why you saw me only using one hand to touch it. But, and I know you can't see it. There's an inner ring starburst, but it's so faint from the use that you can't really see it unless you're holding it at an angle. So I caught that last minute and I counted all the points to the inner circle, but
nice.
That's how it goes.
Nice.
I was just terrified watching you hold up that plate. I'm like, oh my gosh.
I agree. I've actually been on interviews with Beth before with a plate, and I'm like this, don't drop the plate, don't drop the plate.
And then here, the Morgan, I went to school with Morgan. He's the head character, and I mean character in the book. And in real life, he's a character. We were on a call with Stephanie,
yes.
And he dropped Rutherford B. Hayes's Christmas ornament. I thought he was going to have to do CPR because I was like, God. Now, fortunately, they took a lot of the plates back, so I only have 7 on loan. But I did last weekend, I did a show, and it was at the over 55, community. And of course, I said it about 50 times, do not touch. You may not touch. Do not touch. And so I had my back turned answering a question, and this lady walked in and walked up and put the cup and saucer, or Lincoln's cup and saucer, to her mouth. And she goes, I said, I told you not to touch. Here's what she said to me. Well, too bad, too late. And I got a picture, ha ha. And I was like, I hope you don't mind when the Treasury agent comes knocking on your door, because that fingerprint's big as day. And there's DNA in the cup. You will be arrested. And so she was like,
gosh.
That's horrible. I can't believe that somebody would say that to you even. Too bad. Got it. Darn.
I learned, I have metal cubes now, and I have the metal grate. I didn't want to put the metal grate on the front of it because, it kind of obscures the view some, but I can see I have to do it and use the alarms. So they sent alarms to put under each plate. So,
oh my gosh.
It's so impressive that they even loan it to you.
This is serious stuff here with these plates, man.
Yeah.
I think I was with on with Stephanie, or sent pictures to Stephanie when I got when the armed security people brought the dishes and left them, and I'm opening them, and I'd open, take a plate out, and I'd have to go sit down for a half an hour. I was so upset. I was shaking. I was so upset. I didn't want to do it.
Many authors do research, but boy, Beth, this is research to another level.
It is.
Research plus.
It happened that my sister knows the head of public relations she was with Reagan and Trump. So that is what got my foot in the door to borrow the china.
Awesome, awesome. Now, could you please mention, I read in your description of, I don't know if our viewers heard me say the word Bigfoot. Please
Well,
tell us a little bit about Bigfoot.
Well, Bigfoot isn't what you normally hear, with the people out Bigfoot hunting, on TV. Not like that at all. My Bigfoot are smart. Several are doctors, and one's an engineer, and so they're smart Bigfoot. So I use them a lot. But I will tell you, in the Monroe plate, there's a stylized starburst, not like Washington's, but it's stylized. And in the upper right corner of the stylized burst, there's this shadow. And I've had lots of people who've seen the plate say, who's that silhouette of? And I said, what do you think it is? And I did this the other day, and they I walked around with the plate thinking, oh my God, don't let me trip and fall. So they, everyone looked at it. They were guessing all sorts of, I thought Bigfoot was strange, but some of the stuff that people were guessing was like, what? Okay. So there is a Bigfoot on his plate, and it's documented. He had lots of encounters with Bigfoot, lots. And so that's in the silhouette of him pointing to the west is on that plate. So, but anyway, they're in all my books. All the Bigfoot are, Cron, she's
I have to ask, this was President Monroe who had several encounters with Bigfoot?
Yes.
Now, I know where you live, and Bigfoot lives there too.
He does. The Ohio Grassman. He lives in the area. He said they just had a big spotting of him down in Salt Lake State Park, and also in Hocking Hills State Park. But we in the Cuyahoga Valley National Park also have him, and he's been spotted, lots of pictures. We also have the Pukwudgie, which is a shapeshifter, and then what's lovingly called the Peninsula Python. Now, we know pythons cannot live in Northeast Ohio. Come on.
At least we hope not.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. If alligators can live in your sewers up in New York, I'm pretty sure.
I don't know what's in our sewers in New York, and I would think just about anything it wants to be. Have you personally had a Bigfoot encounter, or just second?
I've not seen one. I always, when I'm going to the forest though, I always carry 3 marbles and some sparkle material, because they like that. That's what they say. It shows them that you respect them by leaving gifts. So I have heard the howl though. I have heard that when I was in 3 years ago, when I was in Salt Fork State Park. I heard the howl, and it was like, it's unmistakable, because we don't have cougars. So I know that was not a big cat. So there's only one thing it could be. Well, it could have been a peacock, I guess. But, let me go ahead and believe it was a Bigfoot.
So when I come and visit, I have to carry marbles and sparkle?
Marble, yes, marble and glitter fabric.
Glitter.
So, and if you notice, that's in all of my books, where the Native Americans bow immediately and stand like this with the marbles and the stuff in their hand.
All right. I'm
So, yeah.
I am going to pack my bags. Well, thank you so much. And we're going to all be sitting here hoping that no other people at your shows and book launch events touch the china.
Well, like I said, I got the covers now for the metal cubes they sent. And so the covers go on and the alarms go on.
Yep.
So
you have to do it. You have to do it, because that's just
I
crazy.
didn't want to, but I'm going to now.
No, you have to. And that's crazy if you have to live like that. Unbelievable.
Oh, it's so scary. Every time I have to do a presentation, I'm going, oh God, don't let me break the china.
Please don't break the china. Please don't break the china.
Oh, and then Paul, you were on with me after I hung up with the Historical Society.
Mhm.
The lady tried to steal the Red Haze ornament. She had it in her hand and was walking to her purse. The head of the the president of the Historical Society ran to her and said, I didn't see it. And Ellen, who was with she was my, guard, she didn't see it either. We were distracted with other people. And she had it. And thank God the president saw it and ran and got it from her. She goes, I just wanted to hold it until you're ready to go. Sure, she did. Nobody knew who she was. No, it was sad.
Oh gosh.
I can't even imagine. I just, people are just people, aren't they?
Well, and the ornament's so small. So it was easy for her to palm it in her hand. And, oh well, we caught her. That's
Why did you caught her?
Paid $250,000 for the theft of that.
Well, I am so relieved and hope that the rest of your tour is much less eventful.
I hope so too.
You. Our next author today, Ronnie Kessler, is the author of The Mystery of the Bedouin Girl and Rachel's Gifts. Rachel, our heroine, returns from the mysterious animal soup and Rachel Gifts. And this story of suspense, friendship, and discovery. Rachel's friend Samira, a Bedouin girl, is struggling in a strict and hard life. Rachel and her family become an important part of her life. And in this book, Ronnie Kessler returns to his birth country of Israel, which is so exciting to have a book set, well, not in the Ohio Valley with the Bigfoots, but here we are with The Mystery of the Bedouin Girl. So please welcome our next author. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And
I'm still trying to take in all the stuff in the other book.
Well, and so are your readers, which is why you had to write a new one, because your readers wanted to know what happened next.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
That's for sure. So bring us back to the beginning. Tell us a little bit about you, where you grew up, and how you got your start in writing.
Well, I actually was born in Israel. I came here when I was 15. And, it's really an interesting story in terms of education. We always talk about education. So in Israel, you have to take a lot of languages. So I was in high school in the first year, and we had to take obviously Hebrew grammar and so on, and we had to take English, and we had to study Arabic. And I was so good with languages, I was flunking all three subjects, which of course carries it all the way to today, because, if we didn't have the computers that check the spelling, you would have a very strange book. But in any event, so I finished the third year of the second year of high school when we came over here, and they put me into the first year of my junior high school year. I guess they felt that that's where I should be. So that was really a traumatic thing, because I didn't know English. And here I was now in the junior year of high school, Forest Hills High School, which was known as a pretty good high school. And so that was my beginning, with the English language. I still can't figure out the English language, because I don't understand why you have a K before the N and not. I mean, I just,
nobody knows.
Nobody knows, just throws me. So the book itself, I mean, I always loved writing, and my writing was always expressed either by me just, writing random poetry and essays. And eventually, when I had my CPA firm, I wrote a weekly newsletter. And I remember that many CPAs who read the newsletter said, you're writing it like, for non-CPAs. And I said, yes, I don't have any CPA clients. All my clients are non-CPAs. So I always like to write down to the level of the individual so that they understand, rather than writing it up. And that continued when I became very involved with Rotary, which is a service organization, an international service organization. I was in several clubs, and I always started a newsletter. I always wrote the newsletter, and I did this, I would say, for a good 40 years. As you know, some 20 years ago, I was sitting waiting for somebody, and I started scribbling a story on a napkin.
I love
Get
this
back,
story.
uh,
I love this. Do you have the napkin?
I still have the napkin.
Oh, I love
I
this.
don't know where it is right now. I'll find it a little later. And oh, here it is. Here is the napkin. Oops. I don't know if you could see that.
Wow.
That's
There's
the
a lot of
napkin.
writing on that napkin.
Uh, so what I think two things happened. The first is that my son, who graduated from Columbia Law School, did very well there, but decided to become a screenwriter. Started bugging me to write my story of, being born in Israel and coming here and all the transitions and what have you. He was very interested in that. So I started writing that. And I think that the story of Rachel came back by accident when I was looking through some old papers. And I got intrigued. As I read the first few chapters I wrote, I became very intrigued with it and interested in it. And then the pandemic hit.
Mhm.
And I was at home. And we didn't have Rotary meetings. And no tennis. So I started writing, and I'm listening to to some of the other writers like Beth. Am I right, Beth?
Mm.
And I find when I write, I have no idea what I'm going to write. It's sort of like I'm hearing the story in my head as I'm writing. And even when I go back and review the transcript and correct it and what have you, I very rarely change the story. And the only time, because I decided to write the story for my granddaughters, who were tweens and teens, I did make some changes when I felt it's not appropriate.
Mhm.
Like too much violence, As a matter of fact, the first book, the mystery of the soup, it starts off in a very violent way, and I had to tone it down a little bit. It's still violent. And in spite of that, one of the granddaughters read the first chapter and then felt, she doesn't want to continue. So I think in my writing, that's one of my problems. How do I, balance it out so you have a story that grabs you, but is not, let's say, too traumatic for a younger person to read.
And quite frankly, that's a balance that all writers, whatever the age range they're going for, deal with. There are a lot of people, quite frankly, in the young adult genres right now, the darker, the better. Honestly, if you're trying
Yes.
to appeal to young readers, they tend to like dark, maybe not gory violent, but they do like for there to be darkness. So, but I think you're absolutely right. Not everyone, and perhaps your granddaughter is not into that. And not everybody is going to love every one of our books all the time. I mean, that's just a
Yeah,
reality.
well, it's the trauma and how somebody responds to it. So you have the murder of a parent,
Right.
and if somebody either experienced it or experienced something like it, maybe the death of a grandparent, I can see
Right.
where that could be traumatic, and the book is not for them. So I always encourage, at least I encourage the parents of my grandchildren to read the book first,
Mhm.
or maybe read some of it and decide if it's appropriate for them to read it.
Right.
Now, the next book, The Mystery of the Bedouin Girl, and by the way, one of the goals I have is to have the book sort of mysteriously educate the readers about a topic that I think is important. So in the first book, it was about the dangers of messing around with DNA and that kind of thing. And in the book about the Bedouin girl, it's about the Bedouin culture, which very few people know about.
Mhm.
And I like to start the introduction by saying, how many people know that Abraham, who I think is someone in the cultures of most religions, was a Bedouin?
No?
At least we believe he was a Bedouin. You know, he had his flocks, and you know, he followed the flocks to wherever they went. And of course, they believe that God guided him to the land of Canaan, which, you know, today is Israel. But the shepherds at the time followed, you know, wherever, you know, the grass was for their sheep, goats, whatever. And so that's a culture that is thousands of years old. How many people really know about it? And they're really under attack, you know. So, you know, I think it's important for young people to read about it and find out about it. I compare them a little bit to Native American Indians in their culture, which has been attacked and decimated, and they try to, you know, have the young people amongst them, you know, still keep that culture, but it's very tough. And the same thing is happening now to the Bedouins, who are being forced, instead of being out in the open, even in the desert, and roaming around with their flocks, they're forced now into cities and into villages where, you know, a lot of them turn to drinking or drugs, or because they're not happy there. So there are a lot of similarities like that. And so the book has, you know, is not instructional in that way, but I just hope at the end of the book that some of the younger people, maybe the adults, you know, read a little bit more and do a little more research about the culture of the Bedouins.
I love that. I love that. Getting a little bit of education in there on the sly through a fun story.
Yeah, and they're not just in Israel, obviously, they are in all of the Middle East. You know, it's sort of a mission, and that's what I try to do in the book. Make it interesting, make it a page turner, but maybe also leave it with some knowledge that they didn't have before.
Fantastic. Well, I love the way you said a mission, because I do believe that our next author definitely has a mission. Marie writes of Ignite. What good is a finish line if you never experience the route along the way? That's the question plaguing Ruby Carlson, an impulsive young woman chronicling her premature existential crisis. A runner through and through, Ruby spent her formative years sprinting toward the proverbial finish line of financial independence and the promise of the free-spirited woman she longed to become. But when an unexpected pregnancy results in her transition to the role of mother and provider, Ruby has to stifle her non-traditional self to play the role of a stable Midwestern family wife. The years melt away, and on the outside, it appears Ruby is settled and happy. Yet behind the facade is a woman still clinging to that promise of true freedom. When confronted by a dire longing for that passion and dreams she shed to fortify her family's way of life, what will she do to survive? Please welcome our next author, Marie Wishart. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And boy, did I sound passionate and Ignite for that? I mean,
Seriously, I'm over here with bated breath. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna cry now when she starts talking. I'm like, okay, breathe, breathe.
breathe,
Where's my
breathe,
wine?
breathe. And I do have to ask, of course, with a book like this, because I mean, I'm reading, you know, a little bit of my autobiography, and that description How much of this is about you?
You know, I mean, you can't lie. As soon as I start like explaining who I am, you're gonna be like, yes, this is a book
Yeah, well, I
very
felt
much
like it was
about you.
too. I read it and said, "Oh God, she knows me."
That there we go. And that is my purpose, because as much as I, you know, can say, yes, so much of this is inspired by true life events, I stepped away enough that I just couldn't own that nonfiction authenticity.
Mm,
Nor, as you get more into the books,
yeah.
will you think that I wanted to,
Yeah,
because
no,
I
no.
took some liberties.
I love the way you said that too, because by and we do have many authors that sit there on the line between fiction and nonfiction and have that debate. Which way am I going? And by choosing fiction, making a deliberate choice, you actually invite in more people, don't you? Because it
Oh,
becomes
absolutely.
everybody's story.
Yeah. Yeah. And my goal at the end, you know, I wrote the book, of course, in a moment where I was like, I want these words for me and I don't have them. But I intended my audience to be everyone who was struggling down the line. And I mean,
Yes.
I thought I was alone right then. And now 6 years later, I'm like, everyone I talk to, as soon as we get to this point, they're like, yep,
Yeah.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Were you always so insightful as a kid? Tell me about your youth and beginning writing.
You know, as a kid, I definitely lived in books. And you know, the more I look back on that, the more I loved writing. I always said I wanted to be a writer, but that, you know, saying I wanted to be an astronaut, it just wasn't a real career in my mind, which is how I became a dentist. But like, it's just, it was one of those things. I was a very quiet kid. I was a shy kid, and I lived in stories. So it was kind
Wow.
of fun to
And
write my own.
so a dentist turned writer as
Mhm.
opposed to, our runner turned mother in the book here.
Yeah, yeah. So she actually is a dentist, and this book kicks off the journey. And in the second story, she's going to try and sell the practice and kind of going into hiding in the whole process. And so the second book, what this is setting up, is basically this whole memoir that she decides to write because she can't talk to anybody. And it's like, well, I can't, you know, have conversations with the world, so I'm going to have this book that I just blow it all out into.
Right,
So
right.
it's a book within a book.
It is. It's actually setting up a trilogy, to write the backstory, the memoir itself, and then what one learns as they go back and actually edit a memoir. Because you always see all of your flaws as soon as you go back and start editing your work.
Oh, absolutely,
That's
absolutely.
cool.
It sounds like a book that is crying out for book clubs. Do you do book clubs?
I am just getting started in this. So I met Stephanie from the
Oh,
Book and Wine Lovers
yes,
Club,
yes.
and
And she's getting you set up with book clubs, isn't she? Good.
she is, and she was just like the best connection ever, because I've had girlfriends pick it up, fly through it, and they're like, I need lunch, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, yes, this is the kind of book that should open that door, and all the women that need to have that conversation can be like, here's my starter.
Yeah, yeah. So all the women watching this is for you to get those conversations going with your girlfriends that you've been friends for years and you never talked about this stuff. You never dove deep, but this book will help you.
Yes, yes, this is so important. I have never seen so many people turn around and tell me they changed their lives and they've never been able to talk about this stuff with anyone else. And it surprises me, but I mean, think about how many people are in the world and how many people sit quietly and suffer through this stuff.
Oh gosh, you are so right. Our motto here is changing lives one book at a time, and you are doing that. That is just so amazing. Is one life at a time you are changing with your book. But tell me first how it
Thank
changed
you.
your life. Like, tell me it
Oh,
personally. Yeah, that's what I want to hear.
okay. So honestly, if we went back 6 years, I live in San Diego right now. I work 2 days a week as an associate dentist. I don't own my own practice. I'm training, I'm writing, I'm living my dream.
Yes.
And 6 years ago, I lived in Fargo, North Dakota. I owned my own dental practice. I couldn't travel. I was unhappy. I was in a marriage I didn't want to be in. And I thought, I'm going to kill myself or I'm going to get out of this. One of those two things. And 6 years later, hard
Wow.
fucking work. Here I am. Sorry, I swore, but
That's okay.
that was
So the book, what came first? You were writing and it pushed you out of Fargo. You pushed out of Fargo and documented it afterwards. I mean, obviously the thoughts of it were going on to get you out of Fargo. And with all due respect to Fargo, I've been there.
it's a place visiting family is the only excuse. The wood chipper, you can go visit the wood chipper. And
I was coming home
about
from
it.
the Canadian Rockies. It was in the way. So, you know, there was
I have moments where I miss it. There are definitely wonderful things. And Lakes Country, Minnesota is God's territory, but Fargo.
Well, with all
Yeah.
due respect, from Fargo to San Diego, which is known as the most picture perfect weather spot in all of America.
It is. We literally 72 and sunny year round is real. And I mean, I am a triathlete. I work out every day and I need to be outside. So when I'm biking outside, I'm running outdoors, I'm swimming in the ocean, I'm like, I am living the dream. That's actually one of the San Diego things is you go up to another person and they're like, how's it going today? And they're like, living the dream.
Really? That's a thing?
It's a thing. We say it to each other on purpose.
Oh my gosh. I had no idea. Well, now I know. Next time I go to San Diego, I'm going to get off the plane and be like, living the dream.
Yep. It'll work.
Fantastic. So yes, this book absolutely changed your life.
So you wanted to know when I started writing. I'm sorry, I got like
That's okay.
sidetracked, but-
That's okay. Oh, loving it. Don't worry. But yes, kind of a what came first, the chicken or the egg question, shall we say?
So what I actually did do was write book 2 first, and I started writing it like right when I listed my practice, because that was a real thing. I couldn't talk to anyone. When you list your dental practice, you just listed a business. You can't tell your staff, you can't tell your family. I told my husband, and that was it. We were the only people who could talk about it. So we left town and we started traveling all of the time. We were just going to different places just so we didn't have to face people. And then I would just hide away and write. And I wrote that memoir as it was happening. And then when I went to finish it up, I was like, this needs a backstory because nobody understands why this happened. So then I wrote the backstory of everything that brought me up to that point. And then like after moving to San Diego and started to editing it, I wrote a third part of like, oh shit, I kind of messed a bunch of things up. And this is me analyzing it after the fact.
Oh, okay. I am so loving this just because, one of my goals is always that they say that 90% of the population wants to write a book, which literally means that every single person you pass on the street, you 3 are living the dream because
Yes.
yeah, you did what 90% of the population wants to be you. And one thing I'm a huge one for when someone says that nugget of truth that we can just kind of put on a table and say to that 90%, here it is, this is what you should be doing. And Marie, you just gave so many people so much freedom with the way the books evolved. I think so many people think, oh, well, I start on page 1 and I write, and it's all going to fall into place. And if it doesn't, I'm a bad person. I'm a bad writer. They call it writer's block. Really, it's just that you're trying to force a square peg into a round hole and you're not listening to the way things are going. Ronnie was talking about how the story formulates as he's in the moment. Okay, that it's coming out of his fingers. And Beth, I know, Beth writes 1 million words a minute, by the way. She writes faster than I can even conceive.
Hey, I work for NASA. That's where I learned the trade of hurry up and write it before somebody changed their mind and publish it.
Oh my gosh. So incredibly prolific. And the thing is, everyone is different. So I love that you lived your life, and in the middle of living this drama, I'll say, wrote book 2, went back, wrote book 1, then realized that there's a book 3, and then clean this up and like boom, 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 boom. That's so organic and real, and honestly giving so much permission to people who think that they're wrong if it doesn't evolve from introduction, once upon a time.
Yeah, and it's also, it reminds me because when you made me write the novella,
Yes.
it became a prequel to the book.
And yes, that's
and
what Marie was saying.
yeah, and I was gonna say also, Marie, that what you said reminded me that sometimes a story comes up in my mind about the character, and I write that, and it becomes a later chapter.
Mm.
So there's
Mhm.
stuff in between, and then that happens. So if I all of a sudden get this story, a side story about it, I mean, I don't want to give away the book, but it might be a disaster that happens, but the disaster doesn't fit right now. I write it anyway, and then later, and I put it aside, and then later on, I fit it where it goes. So, you were reminding me of that as you said that you're writing, then you wrote stuff before and then after, because the ideas don't always come in succession or very organized.
Right.
Absolutely. Yes. And it's like a storyteller's job to just keep putting it together and weaving it and then restructuring over the years.
Right. Leave no
It-
part behind. Write it down, then worry
Mhm.
about it later if it fits. Right? I mean, Beth, do you find the same thing?
I relate a lot to what you said, but I actually dream my book. And
Oh my
what
gosh.
I write down. So, and then I add to it, but most of mine comes from dreams at night.
Hmm.
Now,
That's
I
interesting.
would like to say that, for me, of course, it's been an experience, but had it not been for Stephanie's guidance and being able to accept, constructive suggestions and allowing me to grow as an author has been wonderful. Most publishers would never allow that. So, I love suggestions, and sometimes, you sit back and think, I'm not writing this anymore. I'm really bad. I'm stupid. So those attacks. And then I thought, what's wrong with me? So then I sit down at the computer.
I said to somebody that Stephanie is like a writing virus. People.
That's
She
good.
affects people with her enthusiasm into writing. I mean, all I wanted to do was write one book. Next thing I know, I'm committing to writing 3 books. So
Now he's stuck.
Yes.
yeah, your enthusiasm is really infectious.
But I'm loving hearing these different methods. I mean, Ronnie, you're writing it as it's coming out. Beth, your dreams. I can't even imagine. Oh
Right.
my God.
Dreams the other night. So I wrote it down.
Oh my God.
Do you take anything to sleep, or is this all natural?
No, I don't take anything to sleep. No.
I don't remember any of my dreams. I don't understand that. I wake up and I try to remember what I just dreamt because it was a great dream, and I don't. It's all gone.
Yeah, Beth, do you have any tips for remembering your dreams afterwards, or you're just good at that? Is there?
Okay, so in training the astronauts, they always have problems sleeping at night too, and we can't give them drugs to sleep at night. They're in space. If anything goes wrong, they have to react immediately. So we did biofeedback with them. So I think it's all the years of working with the biofeedback. It just ingrains upon you to remember and write down. So I get up, have my cup of coffee, do whatever, vacuum the floor, and then I sit down with my computer and go, oh, I better write this down. So that's, I guess I'm unique. So,
You are. That is literally as fascinating.
Yeah, I can't believe you remember after vacuuming the floor and having coffee. I know people who have always recommended if you dream your stories, keeping a notepad on the bed, because once it's gone, but you keep it.
Oh, I don't put anything beside my bed. I just roll over and go, I'll write that down tomorrow. Now, I have to say the new book I'm reading, that Western book, I don't dream Western. I don't even read Western. I don't know why I'm writing this book.
And there's that
You
too.
don't even challenge yourself.
Yeah, I mean, that does sound like a personal self-challenge that, you might come to a point in the book saying, why am I doing this Western book?
Because my dad said if I didn't, he was going to come haunt me. So I write.
Oh, okay. Trying to avoid dad haunting you. I mean,
Yes.
is he very scary as a haunt? I mean, it might be
I
kind of.
Okay, so here we go. I did have a dream the other night, and I was speaking with someone. I mean, now that I can't remember what we were speaking about, but the phone rang, and I picked up the phone. This is in my dreams, and it was my dad.
Oh.
He goes, "I'm here. I'm here. I'm here." He kept saying it over and over, and I said, "What do you want?" And he said, "I'm here." He kept saying, "I'm here." So I think that's his cue of hurry up and write the damn book. And so, 'cause
You're giving me an idea for all of my authors who might be slow, sitting on the fence, things like that. I need to find a way to haunt their dreams.
there we go. Tell them biofeedback, and you'll be sending your bio to their feedback.
Oh, I will do that. I will do that.
Well, the ages of the three of us are interesting also, because you, Maria, obviously in the beginning, and I assume, Beth, you are sort of in the middle, and I'm at the end in terms of our professional lives, and what have you. And
I'm been retired. I'm probably as old as you are. So
well, then you look
amazing.
Just
fantastic.
has a better hairdresser.
Yeah.
so lighting takes away all the wrinkles. So the
no,
lighter,
she has-
Well, I'll just give you an idea. Unfortunately, we just lost a friend of mine that I knew from high school
Oh.
60 years ago. So in any event, age-wise, since I started so late, I'm getting a lot of ideas from the grandchildren.
Mm.
Like one of the grandchildren says, I really love cats. So now I had to put a cat character, into the book.
Yes.
Nice.
So, I guess you get those things from, wherever they come as inspiration.
It's true.
I-
And
I-
there's so
with
many ideas out there. People
Yeah.
who think there's
Mhm.
no ideas, they're just like floating in the air. They're really, there's no
You
reason
got
to think there-
down.
Yeah, no shortage of good things.
Exactly. Now, Maria, I have to ask you, because there was the book 2 that got written, and then book 1, and then book 3. What about release? Did you release them in the right, I'll say the correct order? Is there anything else coming out? Is there going to be more? The future saga of what's going on?
Right. So Ignite went out in March of last year. There was like all sorts of things before that. This has been 6 years in the making. I had written them together with one woman. I did some pre-stuff on my own. All of that scratched ground zero. I got picked up by an independent press and put out Ignite. I am hard away at edits on book 2, and I am working with a girlfriend right now. And if nothing else, if I can't find a publisher, her and I are just going to, put it on Amazon so that we can keep it rolling. And we're targeting like November for book 2.
Okay, and then book 3, is that still in process? Is it written? Is it a dream? What is it right now?
Book 3 is, I want to say, 25% written. That's the least written one. And I'm actually very excited because I'm going to take a lot of liberty there. I have lots of things going on, but like I had to finish and get book 1 out before I could sit down with edits on book 2.
Right, no,
And so
I
that's
love that
where,
you're
and
working with a girlfriend, especially since you know, your book is obviously reeking for building bonds with other people through shared experiences, and the fact that you are working so closely with a person, what that must have done for your relationship together, and getting to rise together, which just must be amazing.
I love that you said that. This woman is someone I woke up one day and saw an Instagram post, and she's like, I am hosting a writer's clinic. And I was like, oh, I like her. I like her pictures. And I looked at her website. So I just sent her a message, and she's like, I'm in Cape Town, South America or South Africa, and you're in San Diego. And I was like, oh my gosh. But we started working just over Zoom meetings and going chapter by chapter. And we went together on book one, and I loved this woman. We went through quarantine together. We were drinking wine, and we just had a blast. And then I went, and ended up getting this other publisher. And then, after all that wrapped, it was a very impersonal experience. Just, you paid them money and they put the book out, basically. So when I decided, I'm like, okay, I got to go back to book two. I sent her an email. I'm like, all right, we're back at it. And it's just so fun to have another soul in this with you.
Oh, absolutely. I'm like a huge proponent for surrounding yourself. Ryan's got his granddaughters, and I love when people have friends and beta readers.
And some friends, yeah.
And yes, I know you have some friends. We've even had some of your friends on shows with us before,
right?
About
yeah.
the book, and having other people part of the process. Well, first of all, it makes the process so much more fun, because it really is, a group effort, and it's a bonding experience. And the fact that you were able to form this bond, like 2 oceans away. I mean, really, we're talking about. That's just the literal opposite side of the globe from you. Is just amazing. But to be able to grow as an author, I think that the more people, and it's scary to have other people see our stuff. I mean, I think the most exposed thing in the world is to show someone your writing before it's polished and perfect. But I think it's just an amazing thing to get that feedback from people. Good stuff. So you've got something coming out in November then, and then we'll just keep following along from there. Well, for all of you, because you're all going to have stuff coming out in the not so distant future, because I hear tons of things going on here. Make sure you come and join us again. I just want to remind all of our viewers of who you are and where to find your books. Beth Roos wrote The White House Code, and boy, you got a bonus here to be able to see that George Washington plate and the white glove. And she didn't drop it. So we're very excited today. And she didn't drop it. That's all great stuff.
Your cover art is gorgeous.
Isn't that beautiful? That's
so good.
Someone with the fancy gloves holding her hand model, Morgan.
That's right.
And there are many, many more books before this, and then continuing the saga with all of these characters. So you definitely want to catch that. Ryan Kessler's book, The Mystery of the Bedouin Girl and Rachel's Gifts, is the second in a series. There will be more. And as he mentioned, there's also a prequel novella, so you can get involved. And I see there the cat right there on the cover.
Yep.
That you're being forced
Luna the cat.
You're being forced to have the cat in all of your books now.
Yep.
And Ignite, an intriguing dilemma that extends past the pages of the book. This is an amazing book, and I'm just blown away by the story behind the book. So we're all going to be sitting here. Hurry up and read this, because book 2 is coming out, and you want to make sure you're all caught up with book 1, and then continue the saga with book 3. All of you are fabulous. I can't thank you enough for joining us today. And
thank you for having us.
Oh, such a pleasure. And what an inspiration.
Such a pleasure.
Not just for people to read your books, but you have really ignited a whole lot of writers out there. So I can't thank you enough for joining me. And please come back, and next time we'll pour some wine before we record.
Indeed.
Thanks. Thanks for joining us on Between the Covers. I hope you enjoyed